finish what we started talking about before. Um, and that is, what are the signs to watch out for to determine if a group that you might be involved in or that other people are that you know or love are involved in can have a negative impact on them. It's like can be a negative cult, but there's some groups that maybe we don't even consider cults and they will still violate these principles. So these are the principles to really watch out for that can be warning flags that a cult or organization is a detrimental one. Okay. Hi, Arthur. Hi, Peterson. Hi, Elena. Nice to see you guys. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Last video, I talked about the first ring, right? Where the kind of violations against the body. Nice to see you. I talked about violations against the body and that ring against your sense of self ownership that cults create. Cult groups, what are some of the ways that they do that? Next, we're going to talk about some of the other rings to watch out for, okay, and type of organizations that can be negative cults, right? Sometimes they look really good, but if they're violating these principles, you know that there is a potential and there will be the effect of abuse on members, okay? So we talked about the sense of self-ownership and body in the last video, so go back and watch that if you missed it. Today we're moving on to the next rings. So our creations, right? This is another area where a dominating type of organization like a cult, which is trying to take away your power, will come in, okay? They will tell you that you do first, if you don't own yourself, if you don't own your body, right? The next layer is you don't own what you create. Okay, so everything that you create is there for the cult, right? It's belongs to the group, it belongs to the cult. You don't have any ownership over it, and you have no right to receive payment for it. Okay, so these two rings are very tied in together, your creations and the deal. Hey Laura, nice to see you. So let's look at that. Well, how did this happen in my life? And how does it happen in even political organizations? Think about it. So in my life, in the group that I grew up in, they didn't believe that you owned personal possessions because you didn't own your body, and you didn't own the money you worked for and raised that belonged to the group. You didn't own your children, or well, you don't own children anyway, but you had no real right to your own family, right? And hey, Kevlin, nice to see you. Hey, Laura. Therefore, you didn't own what you created. So people would write books, they would write songs, they would work hard and film movies and videos and create all of this content for the group, for the organization, but they were never paid for that, right? It was just assumed that they didn't own it, that belonged to the organization. Now, a political group that does this would be communism. Okay, that is a group that believes that all of the people are owned by the state, in effect. And so whatever you create is also owned by the state. There is no individual ownership. And therefore, it doesn't, and the reason communism failed, and I grew up in these countries and I watched the real world effect of these principles in effect, where you do not allow people to own their own work and to benefit from their own work, and you're also not allowing them to own their own consequences. Okay, so the reality of that is that the entire society ends up failing, because people are like, well, why should I work harder if I don't get any more for that, right? So then they start doing the bare minimum and the entire thing collapses. Now, they try to get around that in sort of religious or idealistic societies by saying you need to do this for God, right? And people will work very, very hard for an ideal, and for God or for religion, sometimes even harder than they will for money or to support themselves. So it's a pretty good tactic, okay? Now, it's one thing. Now, when might this be okay? All right. Is there a time when this would be okay? Let's think about it. Okay. So in a family, we have people who come together, right? Husband and wife, they contract together in a marriage. They are pooling their resources. They're saying everything we both make, this is for our family. Okay. They made that agreement and they pool their resources and they pool it to care for their children. You see, that's a conscious agreement that they made to come together and do that, to share the money and the possessions within the family. People do that in larger family groups. There are situations where people will come together and make an agreement and say, okay, a certain percentage of what we make or earn, we're going to pay to maintain our environment. HOAs do this, right? Homeowners associations. So this is nothing new, that you can come together and say, okay, we agree, we are going to contribute this part of our income to caring for the community. This is totally fine. When people do that consciously, they make that conscious agreement. That is very different than telling people you don't have any inherent ownership right in what you create. You see? That's a very different. So watch out for that distinction. Okay? That's a distinction where cults will basically, another thing they try to do is control your income. Okay, they try to control your money and your income. When we're getting into really more severe types of cults, your income all belongs to the group. By taking away your income, your source of income, that makes you dependent on the cult. Okay, that makes you dependent on the group, which makes it very hard to leave. Because if you have your own economic independence and you can just walk away anytime, you're not going to put up with the same kind of abuse that you will if that's been taken away from you, or if you've been convinced to turn up over your fortune, your money, your source of income, to quit your job, whatever that is, right? Now, let's look at the next layer of the deal, because this is the area, oh my God, this is the area where most of the abuse happens, okay? In any kind of adult relationship, we're talking about an exchange. There's always an exchange. I don't care if it's a personal relationship, a friendship, a love relationship, a business relationship. They all follow the same principles of a healthy exchange has to exist, with both people bringing value to the relationship, okay? Now, one of the main principles that gets violated in all of these groups is which one? Undue pressure, all right? This is the big one. Anytime somebody is using things like guilt, God, your role as a woman, as a man, as a son, peer pressure, fear of punishment, to get you to do something you wouldn't normally do, right? That you wouldn't choose to do because it is beneficial for you, then that is a form of theft. That creates abuse, okay? If it's not something you would choose to do because you say, hey, I can see that this is good for me, this is beneficial for me, this is beneficial for my family, I think that's a great idea, let's do it, right? If it's not like that, and they're saying, hey, God's going to punish you if you don't do this, or you're going to make God unhappy if you don't give us this, or you don't turn this over, or you're going to be outside of God's will if you don't do these actions that we're telling you to do. Anytime you're in a position like that, that's violating the undue pressure principle. Okay. So that's one of the biggest ones, not just cults. We are talking about all religion. Mostly religious types of organizations will mostly violate this one. Family members will do it to you, right? It's just one of the most common ways we as humans use negative manipulation in our interactions with each other. But you're going to see that in a cult, particularly a cult, a harmful cult, is going to do this to a very strong degree. And so that's another one to watch out for, right? And if you're really following these, you're just not going to end up in a negative style cult, because it goes against pretty much all the cult rules, I guess I could say. So those are really the main things, okay? And then any kind of gaslighting, of course, right? So the principles of a deal is you need to know exactly what the offer is. You need to be very clear on the terms of what you're doing, what you're joining, what you're giving up, what you're getting, right? In order to make that decision to do so. And of course, a lot of groups hide the ball on you until it's too late, right? So it's where they have all this secretive stuff in the back, and they're like, well, you're at this first level, and we're just going to teach you about this nice little stuff. And then as they get you in further and further in, then it gets more and more extreme, more excessive, more manipulated, more coercive, right? We're thinking of groups like Scientology. Okay, that's definitely one that does this. The family that I grew up in was 100% very well known for doing this, teaching, just sort of very light, normal kind of, okay, this is what, most Christians believe from the Bible when they first met people, and then waiting until people got much more involved and much more hooked before they started talking about some of the, I guess, more doctrines that people would see as more extreme, right? This is another very common method for all kinds of groups. So just if you're watching out for those signals, okay, when they're trying to take away your economic power, trying to take away your ability to earn money for yourself, your ability to educate yourself and be able to, which gives you the ability to take care of yourself, to earn money for yourself. If they are saying what you do doesn't belong to you, you don't deserve to be paid for it because you're really just doing it for God, right? Now, there are times that people come in and they say, hey, I really want to do this work for this orphanage, or I really believe in God and I choose to do this because I think it will please God, whatever, right? And they are choosing that freely for themselves. That's different. That's totally other thing. You are free to do what makes you happy. And if that is service for others, service for God, that's great. No problem, right? But when someone else is coming in and applying pressure to get you to turn something over that you wouldn't really want to do in a normal situation, that's not really what you feel called to do, maybe, or they're trying to tell you you don't even have a right to it, then you know that they're undermining that principle. Okay. I hope that was helpful and relatively clear. Okay. Go back and watch the first video in this, which was all about the body and how, taking away that sense of self-ownership, because that's really the key that comes first. If they can take that away from you, all the rest of these are easy because they just logically follow. Okay. And then finally, the final ring is the effect. Okay. And that is what's really going to be the effect on your life. What's the impact on your life? What's the impact of if you're believing this stuff, if you're following this, are you then pressuring other people to do it, right? Have you become so sucked into this that you are now part of the problem, that you're now pressuring other people to turn over their money, to turn over the rights to their bodies, right? And that's the cycle. That's where we get sucked in, and the abused becomes the abuser, right? The victim becomes the victimizer. And I definitely saw that in the cult. And you see that all around where women who have been abused or who have been coerced or sucked into these groups, like look at, women who become traffickers, right? Women who become abusive to their own children, women like Maxwell in the Epstein case, right? Who she's began really violating these young women and sucking them in to these very abusive situations with the man that she had partnered with. Okay. So oftentimes people who have been in these situations subjected to this, if they get co-opted and they begin to believe the bull, okay, then they can become the abusers themselves. So that's really what you want to watch out for. All right. So look for these principles. If there's a group, an organization, even a family, even a partner, right, in a relationship that's violating these principles, then watch out for that and learn to stand up for yourself and say, hey, no, sorry, I own me. I own what I create. I get to keep it. I get to make money from it. I get to be independent financially. And you can't pressure me to turn that stuff over to you with whatever, highfalutin noble sounding excuse you've got, or pressure, or God, or any of that stuff, okay? Because God is not there for that. Okay, I like to say that God is not walking around hat in hand, begging for money. Okay, God's got plenty, and the universe is abundant, and we can have more abundance when we choose to do these things because they make us feel good. Because we love it. We love that person. We love that group of people. We love that cause. Then that's great. That's wonderful. That's totally different feeling emotionally from being pressured into doing something, right? Or being told you don't have the right for something. That's completely different. So great to see everybody. Hey, Gabriel. Hey, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful Monday, that you have gotten yourself organized, gotten off to a good start, because tomorrow's Tuesday. Last chance to really push through and get stuff done. And tomorrow is my last day, woohoo, for, how would I put it? I gave myself 1 year. Technically, today is the last day, actually, but I'm going to go live tomorrow anyway. I gave myself 1 year that I had to go live every day. So tomorrow, and that started December 21st. Woohoo, last year. So, almost done. Yay. I do want it to be done. Unlike some people who really enjoy the going live all the time, I have learned to enjoy it. I've enjoyed talking to you guys, but it'll definitely be nice when I don't have to remember to do it every day. Maybe just a couple times a week. All right, I'll let you guys go. You have a great Monday evening or morning, wherever you are, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.